Our next speaker is Selena Sauer. She is an attorney from Crowley Fleck. She has done a lot of her work at Los Alamos, and she is a University of New Mexico Law School graduate. She's currently living in western Montana, Bozeman and the Flathead. She is an environmental and natural resources attorney at Crowley Fleck, where her practice currently focuses on state and federal environmental compliance and litigation, as well as permitting and cleanup of complex facilities, including mines. After earning her BA from the University of Montana, Selena went to work for an in-house counsel at one of the largest and most heavily permitted federal facilities in the country, Los Alamos National Lab. At Los Alamos, Selena worked in litigation support and environmental compliance on a wide range of RCRA, CERCLA, CWA, CAA, NEPA, ESA, and state regulatory matters. Acronyms. Selena attended law school again, like I said, and she's the co-editor in chief of the Natural Resources Journal, earned a Natural Resources and Environmental Law Certificate, and received the Albert E. Utton Natural Resources Law Award for Excellence in Natural Resources. Selena also practiced mineral title and real property law in Longmont, Colorado, before joining Crowley Fleck. Selena is licensed in Colorado and Montana and has a license pending in New Mexico. So please welcome Selena Sauer.
Thank you, Patrick, and everybody, welcome to the last presentation of the conference. As Patrick mentioned, my name is Selena Sauer, and I work for Crowley Fleck. Crowley Fleck is a regional law firm, a well-established regional law firm, and we have a bunch of great attorneys who one of our specialties is helping miners to mine. And they're really experienced environmental, natural resources attorneys, litigation attorneys, and corporate attorneys. And I am really lucky to be part of that group. And I'm also feel very lucky and privileged to be here speaking with y'all. So I'm going to get into what will be covered. So basically, first we'll be looking at mining in the courts and other mining news. And then what the federal government is up to, and believe me, they're up to a lot right now when it comes to mining. And then I will also talk about environmental, social, and governance. And you know, environmental laws and regulations are only a minor inconvenience. Now, when I look at this picture, oh boy, look at that bat. That bat is an endangered species. You know, there's probably protections on that bat that, 364 days of the year, that bat cannot be disturbed. So that guy should not remove that bat from his hard hat. And you see those rocks down those rocks are probably cultural resources that this guy is about to desecrate. And you cannot tell it from the picture, but this miner is actually swimming in acid rock drainage. So, it's good to have an environmental attorney around sometimes to point out these things. So I'm going to start with the Black Butte Copper Project, and it's associated with Smith River, but believe it or not, it is not on the Smith River. It is on a tributary to the Smith River, though. It's the Sheep Creek tributary, and this is litigation that's an environmental assessment permit challenge to Sandfire Resources America, which is formerly Tintina Resources, and their Metal Mine Reclamation Act, that's MMRA permit for the Black Butte Copper Mine that is located on private property, as I said, close to the Sheep Creek tributary to the Smith River, which is known for its rainbow trout fishery. This suit was brought by Trout Unlimited, Earthworks, American Rivers, and some others. So as one of the founding fathers said on Tuesday, yeah, it's about water. It's about water, folks. So on April 8th, an order came out from the judge on cross motions for summary judgment that granted plaintiffs' motions finding that Montana Department of Environmental Quality, DEQ, violated the MMRA and MEPA, which is the Montana Environmental Policy Act, and required briefing for an appropriate remedy within 45 days of the order. So interestingly, the remedy is going to be briefed by all the parties. So that'll be, it's kind of an interesting turn, and it'll be interesting to see what the parties come up with to try to solve these issues. So from a technical perspective, the main issue is the inadequacy of the analysis by DEQ of the tailings storage facility and the stability of the facility. And there's a lot, if you read this order, there's a lot of discussion on the percentage of binder used in the tailings. Is it 0.5%? Is it 2%? It needs to be 4%. So it's very interesting how the judge really narrowed in on that topic. Also, there's a timing issue with the discharge of nitrogen from the holding ponds into Sheep Creek, because the water will take apparently a very long time to work its way through the underground infiltration gallery. And the holding pond release times didn't make sense. So that's another thing the plaintiffs argued, the judge clung to. And so really, seemingly some kind of simple, they seem to appear to me as a lawyer to be kind of simple technical issues. Now, there are some other legal issues that the DEQ will have to sort as well. So MEPA and its federal counterpart, NEPA, requires that regulators take a hard look. And I cannot stress enough to miners, to the consultants, to the regulators, that they take a hard look at where the litigation is lurking, where it can strike before the record of decision, before the finalization of the permit. Get with the stakeholders and try to work it out. If it at all possible, don't litigate if you don't have to, because once you do, it can become a mess. So the next litigation I'd like to cover is at the Thacker Pass lithium mine. The mine is located on public land in the McDermott caldera in northern Colorado. And in January 2021, the Bureau of Land Management, BLM, published an environmental impact statement, EIS, and a record of decision for the mine. After that, Edward Bartell, a local rancher, sued the BLM in Nevada District Court, alleging that the EIS presents a one-sided, deeply flawed, and incomplete analysis and characterization of the proposed project. This is heavy. That's saying a lot, A couple weeks after the filing of this first lawsuit, several nonprofit organizations sued the BLM as well, alleging severe impacts to water resources and wildlife, including the greater sage grouse. Both lawsuits requested that the court enjoin the lithium mine from moving forward. So the court consolidated these cases, and then after that, tribal governments intervened, including the Burns Paiute, I hope I'm saying the name correctly, tribe, and Reno Sparks Indian Colony, and they brought National Historic Preservation Act claims, alleging that there is evidence of a nearby massacre that occurred in 1865 and that the BLM failed to consult with them. In July 2021, Judge Miranda Dew denied the tribe's request for an injunction to stop the digging and trenching efforts to conduct a survey of artifacts and historic properties. The district court's denial of injunctive relief is currently on appeal in the Ninth Circuit, so that is not over yet. There are all kinds of other shenanigans that are going on in this case, and I can't get into them here, but plaintiffs did file motions for summary judgment on April 5th, 2022. And meanwhile, as of February 25th, 2022, all of the state permits are in place for the mine to be built, and Lithium Americas Corporation continues to conduct the required archaeological survey of the mine area. Okay. Sunnyside Gold Corporation, SGC, and the EPA just really recently settled their Superfund liability at the Bonita Peak Mining District. So this has been in the news for a long, long time. The Gold King mine incident caused 3 million gallons of acid rock drainage to flow into the Animas River, the San Juan River, and those run through New Mexico, the Navajo Nation, and Utah. So let me quickly go over the history, a walk down memory lane. In August 2015, the EPA contractor caused the Gold King mine level 7 adit to blow out. That was that orange river everybody saw in the news back then. I'm sure you all can remember it. Such an iconic picture, right? By spring 2016, there was sprawling multi-district jurisdiction multi-district litigation, several jurisdictions, several states, individuals. It was big, and it included tort and CERCLA claims. Fall 2016, EPA designates the Bonita Peak Mining District as a massive Superfund facility, and it contains 48 individual sites. So Sunnyside Gold Corporation was the last large owner and operator in the area, making it a target potentially responsible party, a PRP. EPA is a PRP as well. So all those years of litigation, here we are, actually April 28th, just a couple of weeks ago, EPA and SGC finally settled. And so SGC, they will split a total of $90 million, and SGC will pay $41 million to the federal government and $4 million to Colorado. And so, as you guys may know, consent decrees are not generally admissions of liability. So here's the Bonita Peak Mining District. I think we already saw this map, but I've kind of highlighted the Sunnyside mine and the Gold King mine. And I want to give you a really quick refresher on CERCLA liability because it's real fun. So CERCLA liability is retroactive. Parties may be held liable for acts that happened before Superfund's enactment in 1980. It's joint and several. Any one potential responsible PRP can be held liable for the entire cleanup of the facility when the harm caused by multiple parties cannot be separated. And it's strict. A PRP cannot simply say that it was negligent or it was following industry standards. If a PRP was involved with a release from a facility, that party is liable. Superfund liability is triggered if hazardous wastes are present at a facility. There is a release or a potential release of those hazardous substances. So my question, is, well, what is a facility? Here, EPA has made the facility a large portion of a mountain range with 48 separate sites, miles apart from one another, and lots of owners and operators over the years. But in doing so, it has drawn in the only owner or operator left in the area, still reclaiming, still there, to help pay for it all. And so is that what legislators had in mind when they enacted CERCLA? It's a question. Well, anyway, I'm going to keep on going. So the Clean Water Act and Waters of the United States, or what we call WOTUS. So they've been doing rulemaking back and forth on this for a long time. Rulemaking is really to define what the waters of the United States are and are not, to delineate where the federal jurisdiction for EPA and the Army Corps of Engineers is or is not. So EPA and the Corps tried to do a rulemaking on waters of the United States in 2015, but that ended in massive amounts of litigation. Then the Trump EPA turned around and actually did rulemaking in 2020, and for its navigable waters protection rule that clearly and rather broadly defined what waters of the United States are not. Waters of the United States do not include the following: groundwater, ephemeral features, diffuse stormwater runoff, ditches, artificial lakes and ponds, water-filled depressions constructed or excavated in upland or in non-jurisdictional waters incidental to mining and construction activities, and pits, and et cetera, et cetera. Then, in the next episode of As the Pendulum Swings, in June 2021, EPA initiated a new rulemaking, partly because of a U.S. District Court for the District of Arizona's order vacating and remanding the Navigable Waters Protection Rule. So they initiated a new rulemaking, and comments on the proposed rule were due February 7th, 2022. So not too long ago. Since then, radio silence. I'm guessing that EPA and the Corps are having to mull over those comments because there were a lot of them. And so what's important here is that while all of this is going on, the EPA and the Corps have reverted to those pre-2015 regs that we all probably know and remember, and the significant nexus test. So basically, after all of this, we're kind of back to where we started for now, but we'll keep watching this. It's going to keep moving forward, and there seems to always be litigation on it. So now, kind of switching gears, I'm going to talk about the future supply and demand issues with minerals and metals in the United States. As we have discussed during this conference, between the minerals needed to build out the clean energy infrastructure, including like electric cars, wind turbines, and solar panels, and the geopolitical supply chain issues that we saw during the beginning of COVID, and now with the Ukraine war, and arguably with trade issues with China, everyone is really paying attention, and those paying attention now know that we need to beef up American mining and processing and do so quickly. I love this infographic because it really lays it out really nicely. I think some of the main minerals that are going to be needed. So the next couple slides, kind of what they illustrate is what I see as a ramping up of support for the mining industry in America by the executive and by Congress. Just a year ago, the Biden administration came out with this 100-day supply chain review. And if you remember, this has kind of been discussed the first day by Sydney, the first day of the conference. So basically, it says one portion of it says the United States must secure reliable and sustainable supplies of critical minerals and metals to ensure resilience across U.S. manufacturing and defense needs, and do so in a manner consistent with America's labor, environmental, equity, and other values. And so the question is how to accomplish environmental and environmental justice goals, and how to actually get the shovels in the ground all at once. Not only the Biden administration, but NGOs, regulators, and miners are all struggling with this question, how to make it happen. Now, I've talked about some permitting hurdles and lawsuits. However, at the same time, we know that people share the sentiment that mining is absolutely important and essential to America and pretty much everything we do as a society, especially, looking at our smartphones. Let's just start right there. Next, in the fall of 2021, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act was signed into law. And this is another signal that the government is focused on improving mining outcomes. The federal permitting improvements include establishing and adhering to timelines and schedules for the consideration of and final decisions regarding applications, operating plans, leases, licenses, permits, and other authorizations. But we still do have those lawsuits, and, because separation of powers, for one thing. But the bolded section really caught my eye. The government is going to study how to deal with the lack of workforce in the mining industry. And we've talked about that here. I think it's interesting they're going to study it. I think it's great. And importantly, how to improve the public perception about the nature of mining and mining processing. So next, actually just about a month ago, President Biden invoked Title III of the Defense Production Act to help jumpstart new mines and expand existing ones, ordering the Defense Department to consider at least 5 metals, lithium, cobalt, graphite, nickel, and manganese, as essential to national security. Now, Trump did this back in 2020, but it was only with regard to REE, and it was specifically for defense applications. And now this is a broader, if you read it, you can go online and read it. It's a little bit broader than that. So a formal plan could include investment opportunities to expand existing mines and mining operations, and for new operations to conduct things like feasibility studies. All right, let's talk about the General Mining Law of 1872 and mining law reform. You know what? I wanted to say, this is a really famous World War II picture of President Harry Truman and General MacArthur and Admiral Radford and others. And I just love it. It was a different day. It was a different world back then. So anyways, And it was also a different world in 1872, wasn't it? So we know that the General Mining Law of 1872 grants private citizens the right of self-initiation to enter, occupy, and use public lands to explore for locatable minerals and to develop mines. It's a location system for regulation, locating copper, lithium, rather than a leasing system like what we have with coal, oil, and natural gas. For the past 150 years, hard rock miners extract locatable minerals from public lands without having to pay any federal royalties. Efforts to amend and or replace the General Mining Law are not new. The Hard Rock Mining and Reclamation Act has been introduced at least six times since 2007. But this latest round bears watching because things are changing. On the executive side, on February 22nd, the president directed the Department of the Interior to establish an interagency working group, an IWG, that will lead an administration effort on legislative and regulatory reform of mine permitting and oversight, and will work with agencies to initiate updates to mining regulations by the end of the year. The IWG will report its recommendations to Congress by November 22nd. And you know, Sydney Smith from AEMA talked about this on Tuesday, and he also mentioned that it takes 7 times for somebody to hear something and sink in. So we're just kind of going over this. This is at least 2 times. All right, so on the congressional side, pretty recently, April 26th, 2 different bills were introduced with the same name but different statutory regulatory mechanisms. So first we have House Bill 7589, and I would call this a leasing and rental system that basically it scraps the locatable claim system and installs a leasing system with 12.5% royalty on gross income and rentals of $5 to $10 per acre per year. Now, I have only done a preliminary read on this, so you know, this is very high level. You can read it, though. You can get online and read it anytime if you like. It is lengthy. Both of them are lengthy. The other bill is Senate Bill 4083, and I would define this as kind of a fee and permitting system. It seems slightly more reasonable. It's introduced by Senate Martin Heinrich, a Democrat from New Mexico, and imposes a royalty between 5 and 8%, depending on the type of mineral. And it imposes several categories of fees. We've got location fees, land use fees, reclamation fees. So here are the 2 bills, kind of side by side, and there is some overlap. There's probably a lot of overlap, but these are the things that I noticed I picked out on my high-level read. The maintenance fee of $200 per claim, a hard rock mineral reclamation fund where all of the extra money from all these fees and from the royalties, if there's extra money, they will go into that fund. And then an ability for the federal agency to withdraw, you know, kind of special places, special areas from exploration. And that's kind of more of ability that the federal agency can make, can make as throughout time. It's not like set at one specific time they have to do the withdrawal. They can kind of decide. Oh, and the other thing, the 7 cents per ton displaced materials or dirt tax, which I know is very unpopular. So there's some more legislation, which I think is really great news. This is the Good Samaritan Remediation of Abandoned Hard Rock Mines Act. It's a bipartisan bill that creates a pilot permitting program to enable not-for-profit cleanup efforts to move forward. And importantly, the Good Samaritan is not liable under CERCLA for past, present, or future releases as long as they're doing their work responsibly. So now, I'd like to turn to ESG. I know I probably don't have much time left, but this is, you know, ESG is a really, really important topic, I feel, right now. And why is because I feel that the mining industry is really on the verge of a sea change here in the United States. And I think we all have a responsibility to help flip the script for the kind of the bad press and the poor public opinion that many people have about mining. So ESG, it stands for Environment, Social, and Governance, not government. And basically, under the environmental side, we're looking at energy consumption, waste management, and air and water pollution. On the social side, we're looking at Native American cultural concerns, consultation, land use, environmental justice, or EJ, labor practices, worker community health and safety, security, mine closure, and land use. And then on the governance side, how a company is managed, right? How well do executive management and the board of directors attend to the needs of the various stakeholders, including employees, suppliers, shareholders, and customers? Now, I know that most mining companies already are focusing on these areas, but they may not be putting everything together and then leveraging it the best way possible. And that's kind of what ESG is about. So instead of thinking, I got to do ESG, think about it as combining all the wonderful things that your mining operation is doing and can do, and then broadcasting that out to the public and letting everybody know how great mining can be, especially modern mining. Okay, so can look at it from several different perspectives. First, there's the compulsory and voluntary reporting of ESG metrics, parameters, and criteria for investors. And then there is how to go about getting that really good data for those metrics and criteria. And then finally, I think there really is another level of providing that information to other stakeholders, regulators, and the public. So what it's really a process. So yeah, what does that mean for miners? Well, y'all have heard of mansplaining, right? Okay, well, think of it as the difference between telling the story of mining and mine-splaining, which I know it can happen. For example, how many times has someone said, well, the mine just needs to be put somewhere else, or why can't they move the mine, or why can't they stop using acid so you don't get acid rock drainage? Like you're actually pouring acid on the, yeah, anyways. So it's about getting the information on mining out to the public in a way that will resonate with them. Getting them the facts, not getting angry and like trying to talk down to folks who don't understand mining. A lack of attention paid to ESG may affect a company's ability to raise capital, obtain permits, work with communities, regulators, and NGOs, and protect assets from impairments, like litigation. We have seen in the cases reviewed today that the social license to operate in many ways is just as important as the actual operating permit from the regulator, right? So by making decisions that consider ESG and providing the data to prove up on those ESG commitments, miners are helping to ensure that their social license will be in place when they need it. And it's really about, when I think about ESG, I think about transparency and accountability, documenting your decisions and actions, providing the metrics on outcomes and results, and telling the story of your mining operation. So let's start kind of at the top level. ESG-driven investing is increasing, especially in the millennial group. Morgan Stanley Bank recently conducted a survey that found that nearly 90% of millennial investors were interested in pursuing investments that most closely reflect the values that they hold. By 2018, approximately 12 million worth of investment assets were selected using a socially responsible investing strategy. As millennials begin to compose a larger segment of the total investment pool, ESG investing will probably expand as well. Now, you may have heard that the Security and Exchange Commission, the SEC, has come out with proposed rules that require a registrant to include certain climate-related information in its registration statements and periodic reports. The comment period is open on these proposed rules until May 21st, And there is a good chance that the proposed rules will be changed quite a bit, or they may even go away based on the amount of pushback the SEC will get. However, I'm going to talk about them for a minute, just so you're aware. The rules include 3 scopes or levels of 3 different scopes, levels of reporting. Okay, so scopes 1 and 2 are for in-house and power supply emissions, and this would cover all registrants of the SEC. And then for many larger companies, there's scope 3, and that is reporting on emissions of upstream and downstream supply chains. So depending on the industry, the emissions embedded in a company's supply chain can be 6 times the total of scopes 1 and 2 combined. I read that on the internet, so it must be true. Scope 3 would include emissions resulting from indirect company activities, not just raw materials, but also emissions from employees commuting to work, from people using the product, and from its eventual disposal. So this sounds pretty rough, I know, but if your silver is going into solar panels, then maybe it's not so bad. So just something to think about, and that's what the SEC is up to. Okay, so I'm coming back around to talk a little bit more about SGC, because I know a lot about them. So this is a little case study. So SGC's history provides a good case study on the ESG process. They were doing ESG before ESG was a thing. And what this process can do for a mining company over time. So basically, ESG, they came into the Bonita Peak Mining District. They operated the Sunnyside mine in Silverton from 1986 to 1991, a very short time. They had to rehab the rundown mine, and they brought it back into compliance. They used modern mining techniques and under modern environmental regulation. They closed the mine in accordance with laws. They spent $30 million on reclamation over 30 years. They were an active participant in the community. They did not walk away. They conducted reclamation activities for sites other than their own. They were active participants in all kinds of stakeholders groups. They won awards. And so, do you guys see what I just did? I was doing ESG for SGC. I was doing it. That's what it is, you know, giving out the facts. So here's a couple of reclamation before and after pictures. We always have to have a couple of those. And this was done back in the 1990s. So that was a long time ago when they were, back then when they were reclamating. And then, you know, 2015 rolls around, and lo and behold, the EPA contractor causes the Gold King blowout. And New Mexico sues EPA, and basically, and then EPA creates the Superfund facility, right? And by creating this gigantic Superfund site, EPA was able to draw in SGC as another PRP to arguably take focus and blame off of EPA and to ultimately help pay for the accident. The U.S. claimed that SGC was a PRP liable for all cleanup costs for the entire Bonita Peak Mining District, including the Gold King disaster, but SGC effectively challenged the U.S. claim legally and by providing information and facts that rebutted the claim and emphasized SGC's commitment to reclamation and the community. And there's that picture, that iconic picture that I don't think anyone can ever forget. So this is just an example of, thank you. This is just an example of, there was an article, you know, Sunnyside Gold letting folks know that they got an environmental award. And then they have this, there's this great picture. I don't know who picked it out, but you'll see the Animas River on the left. That's the clear river where you can see the rocks. And that's Sunnyside Gold's side of the mountain. And then you can see Cement Creek flowing into it on the right, the orange water, and that's the Gold King's side. So even there, that's, you know, it's just great messaging, I think. So SGC really fought back because it really considered EPA considered an unfair portrayal of events. And because it already had such strong community ties and had done really good work at the Bonita Peak Mining District for 30 years prior, people really listened. So here's Trout Unlimited. This is their comment to the consent decree, where they say, want to thank the on-site employees and leadership at Sunnyside Gold Corp for their years of commitment, collaboration, and transparency here in the basin. They stuck by their commitment to the health of the Animas River and remained in the basin for decades to work alongside our community to mitigate impacts of mining operations of theirs and other folks, other sites at the Bonita Peak. So, here, Black Butte, here, locally, Black Butte Copper. This is their website page. Again, they're doing it right from the beginning. It says it right there. We'll see what they do with their permit, but they will start from the beginning in the modern age of environmental regulation. They're committed to environmental protection and committed to the community. So this is just another really good example of, kind of the public relations side of ESG. Okay, well, I'm almost done. I would like to challenge everybody here to ponder, where do you think you might fit in to the ESG puzzle? I think everyone can get on board with some aspect of this. Consultants do cool sciencey and engineering stuff and collect data. Regulators perform their own form of ESG all the time. And regulators and consultants and miners, we all really need to get together on this. So I'm going to go over the process very quickly. So you can assess ESG risks and opportunities across the entire mining portfolio for a single site. And, there are going to be some things like the energy footprint that apply to everywhere, to your entire operations, and then other things like Endangered Species Act or cultural resources that may apply to one site or another in particular. So you kind of want to look at it broadly and then narrow the focus. Set your ESG strategy and objectives at all levels, define your strategic action plan, and pursue project-level interventions. And then very important to collect that data and report on it. And also, I think it's really important to seek certification, third-party certification on this stuff. So, I got one more slide. So one ESG warning, and it's regarding this term greenwashing. I don't know if y'all have heard of this. It is a real thing. There have been lawsuits. So when I say mining is the new green energy sector, am I greenwashing? I don't think so, but I think it is a perfectly reasonable thing to say based on how I feel from my perspective. However, my frame of reference is not everybody else's frame of reference. So even in this exciting time for mining, we need to be really careful about not greenwashing. And 3 things: back your communications with messaging and good solid evidence. Lead with your actions and with regard to environmental permitting and issues like EJ. And make sure to acknowledge others' viewpoints while telling your story. Now go forth and commit ESG, everybody. Thank you so much. Thanks for staying and listening. And I'm happy to take questions over lunch. Thank you.